Normally, when we get a car to review, we try and get the car shortly after it's just started production, maybe in the first 6 months to a year.
This time we didn't quite achieve that. We missed it by the narrowest of margins.
A margin so narrow, in fact, that this car has been in production basically since 2018, and it's just about to end production.
Yeah, the margin that we missed it by is that they announced it being discontinued.
Just before we actually recorded this review. In fact, they announced that this car is being discontinued as we had it on review. Great timing at Audi, but nevertheless, we're going to review this. This is the Q8 e-tron from Audi. This is the slightly more sporty one, not the S-trim variant. This is just like the middle of the range version. And because it's just about to exit production, we're going to review it with the idea that either you might want to buy this as a heavily discounted brand new car,
or more likely that you're going to pick it up as a used car at a heavy, heavy discount.
Well, it's cold. Let's test it. Normally, I would allow the movie magic and pretend that we were starting the review, but it's really, really cold today. It's raining heavily. We've literally just recorded our conclusion and our introduction in very similar locations up in the mountains. We're now heading back down towards civilization, but we're on a gravel road, and I think we have to start, when it comes to handling, talking about how well this handles bumps and lumps. That was well timed, Kate.
I know, I did that on purpose. Yeah, I mean, this thing is astonishing in terms of the way it handles rough roads, in the way that road holding remains unbothered by appalling road surfaces, and not just gravel. I mean, we're driving down a gravel track on ordinary city tyres, the kind of thing that, you just have for your daily driving. And it feels incredibly well planted, and it's handling it just with such aplomb.
It's really difficult to kind of try and represent how well this car is handling this washboard. But suffice to say, there is a road near us, the one that goes up and over Rocky Mountain. It is known as being a great road if you are kind of a driving enthusiast. It's got some great corners on it. But in the last sort of 5-10 years, the quality of that road has deteriorated substantially.
Well, it now has a section that's just gravel.
That's just gravel.
Always exciting.
And going up over that pass when this car is in all-road mode, it feels like someone has gone along and filled all of the bumps in and all of the lumps in. Especially when you go from the roads in Washington County, which are nice and smooth, to the roads that are looked after by Multnomah County, which are very, very heavily potholed. This car just goes yes and.
So I'm going to say this, and Audi press team, please look away and just cover your ears. But I used to own a car with Sir Alec Sigonis's rather fine hydroelastic suspension. And ignoring the fact that car was a shed in every other regard, that suspension system was amazing. For a car of its age, it just glided along. It felt like you were on the smoothest roads when things were going to hell. And I take my own Nero across Rocky Mountain fairly frequently, just because it's a fun drive. And it is in such poor condition that it has actually thrown my suspension out on occasion, and I've had to get it sorted at services. This I drove it up there as a test drive, and I was like, it does. It feels like the road's been resurfaced. You're just stunningly smooth.
And if you are watching and you are from Multnomah Council, please sort it out. It's one of our best roads in the Pacific Northwest for little fun driving fun, but it's becoming undrivable in anything that doesn't have really good suspension, and that includes the Hummer EV. So we are in all-road mode right now.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned the Hummer EV. I feel we have to point out that in this vehicle, you do not have to stop to change the suspension settings. You just press the drive select mode, and it goes, okay. And you drive along, and it changes the suspension height.
And there are multiple different modes, right? So you've got your standard normal road mode. You've got your eco setting that allows you to drive in a very kind of eco-friendly way. And then you've also got your off-road mode, which raises up the suspension to maximum height. Then you've got your all-road mode, which is designed for this kind of road that we are on right now.
Yeah.
Where it's a gravel track. It might be a bit tough going in some places, but otherwise it's pretty good. And then you've got an auto mode, which I find very interesting, where the car kind of makes the decision for you.
Yeah, it tries to make an estimation of what you might need in any given moment.
All of those modes are very easy to switch between, give the car very different driving dynamics, but in every situation you do feel in control. The only one that I haven't really played with a huge amount was the off-road mode, because it removes some of the traction control settings so that you can, get out of a difficult situation.
Yes, and Audi did not offer us the please take it off-road that one particular automaker has offered us in the past. So I haven't.
Unlike a lot of cars that do have the air suspension and you end up not really knowing where the wheel is and what's going on, I feel like Audi's worked pretty hard to make sure that you do know where the wheels are and what they're doing with the Q8 e-tron. When I got behind the wheel for the first time and it was in comfort mode, I didn't feel that. Comfort mode is the most detached of all of the driving modes. But all the other modes, I do get a really good feel. And that makes sense because Audi Quattro.
Yeah, you can feel the heritage. You can feel that this is a company that know how to build cars, that have that real wealth of institutional knowledge about suspension design, chassis design, about handling. And this, you really feel a lot of that. And I think the driving dynamics of this vehicle are basically its strongest point. They're the thing where I get behind the wheel and I go, yeah, that's really good.
So I drove it up to you and it was raining and it was horrible, and I drove it up over Rocky Mountain Pass, and then I drove it all the way to you, and some of that was on back roads on Highway 30, and some of that was on I-5, and I actually wasn't at all tired driving this car. I was surprised at how untired I was driving it.
I think for me, the challenge is that most of my longer distance driving in this car has been in frankly atrocious weather. And in atrocious weather, you feel the age of its ADAS system, which basically gives up and says, it throws up its hands and says, I don't know where the lane markings are, sort it out yourself, honey. Oh, by the way, I'm turning off adaptive cruise control.
Yeah, and that's something that I did actually run into. You do have to do a lot of the driving yourself if you want a car with the latest and greatest in driver assistance technology. This is not the car for you.
No, absolutely not. But in terms of comfort, it definitely cossets you in a way which does make the whole experience very pleasant.
I am curious as to what you made of its blind spot warning systems and its ability to detect the world around it.
I think the blind spot warning I didn't find was too much of a problem. That has a nice big orange indicator, although the first time I was driving the car I did think, why is that indicator on when I've turned my indicators on? And then oh no, that's the blind spot warning. Okay. But it is very visible, which I really like. Where it falls down is that it just isn't very good at the autonomous, semi-autonomous package that it has. It tends to try and pull you suddenly into the middle of the lane because it very intermittently, particularly in weather like this where it's raining, I mean not right now, but what we've been enduring this morning, it can't see the road markings, and then it will suddenly see a flash of road marking and it will yank the wheel a little bit, and it's just, and you can adjust how forceful and how enthusiastic it is, but there, it just, like, it suddenly saw the road markings and now it's lost them again. And you just get this sort of, oh, I need to go this way, oh, I need to go this way. Similarly, when you have it actually working, it is the most naggy vehicle.
Oh,
Good
yes.
grief.
Yes.
It.
The legal department were working overtime on this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is very frustrating that when it actually is working and it is keeping the car in position in the lane and you're just providing minimal steering input, then it will then start shouting at you that you're not providing enough steering input, and eventually you reach the point of being like, well, I'll just zigzag down the road then. That's fine.
Interestingly, the actual driving experience for me was very pleasant. I did find the brake sometimes was a little over snatchy.
Yeah, it does grab a little bit, particularly at low speeds, I found.
So I found it doesn't have kind of the traditional one pedal driving mode that a lot of people would want in an EV, but I do find that its regen setting is actually slightly better than some other of the Volkswagen Group EVs. Not as good as the Porsches, but if you drive it in B mode, which is selectable down here with this gear lever that I'm sure you and I have things to say about, it does actually do a fairly good job of retardation when you lift off the throttle.
It does. I mean, it's not as strong as I would like, and you can also, it has an automatic regenerative mode, which as far as I could tell was completely incapable of doing anything useful.
It makes random guesses about where you are. I mean, it does it based on GPS location and your speed and what you can see around it. I had mixed results with it, let's leave it at that.
I personally had no significant success with it, but yeah, it definitely is there, and I know that other people who've driven this vehicle have had better success with it than me. I, in the end, have opted to switch it into the manual regen mode, where you can say, I want you in a particular level of regen, which isn't that powerful, but is better than... It's more the way I like to drive, which is with regen on, and almost, I would like one pedal driving. I feel like they could do that as a software update.
There are a lot of screens in this car.
There are. The driver's cluster is really nice and bright and clear, and you have multiple options for how you can set it up, and I really quite like it. This screen up here with the sort of, you have to push it to make it click, that is a bit weird, but okay. This one down here, I feel, is broadly unnecessary and could be a quarter the size.
Well, so I think what Audi tried to do with this car is to add all the conceivable settings that you might need in one massive amount of screen space. And you know, you can turn the screens on and off, you can reach the charging buttons, you can add the hill descent mode, which again is a kind of an addition to the off-road mode. It's all very good, but the issue here is that at the end of the day, we're left with a vehicle that, if you're not careful, can give you a bit of an overload.
Yeah, it's one of those vehicles that you really want to spend a lot of time with to get used to. And I think once you are used to it, this will be fine. But I do find that when I want to find a setting or want to find a function, there's a lot of hunting around for it. And for example, when we have the review vehicle, I always connect my phone because it's useful to have that, and because it's useful to be able to communicate on the way to the review that, you know, I'm here or I'm stuck in traffic. And trying to disconnect it this morning was incredibly frustrating and ended up with me having to switch my phone into airplane mode so that it would disconnect from the car itself before it would allow me to disconnect the phone. Because when I tried to disconnect it, it kept saying, well, your phone is connected. And I was like, I'm aware of that. I would like it not to be.
I can't speak to the over-the-air update capabilities of this vehicle, but what I can say is it all seems quite nicely put together.
It does, and it is nicely responsive. That's definitely the case. I don't have any issues with that. As usual, a couple of issues with Android Auto where it doesn't seem to want to automatically connect. It randomly says yes or no, but there is one other thing that I really want to mention. This is a hilariously me problem. This is probably a problem for less than 0.1% of people who buy this vehicle. But I sing. I take singing lessons. I'm practicing at the moment Handel Oratorio.
And you're in a band.
I'm also in a band. The Handel Oratorio is for my singing lessons, not for my band.
That would be cool, though.
I mean, I actually kind of want to do... I do have urges to do something with a theremin and a bass guitar, because those are the two instruments that I have. And an oratorio. I think it would be quite funny. But anyway... beside the point, while I'm practicing singing, this vehicle almost invariably starts demanding my attention. It says, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I don't want you to do anything. I'm singing. Leave me alone. And it's very persistent about it. So this is entirely a me problem, but I thought it was quite funny.
I mean, I have actually... I did do some singing myself in the car because, obviously, I'm a music major. I didn't have it ask me what I wanted to do, but it did do it when I was practicing character voices.
So yes.
So I switched into Queenie Dearheart and Chimichanga the Fox and a couple of other characters because I was doing some performance that I was preparing for, and I have to remember how to do the character voices. They kind of live in my head, but sometimes I come out and do them. And the car did ask me, what can I do for you? And earlier on it just started doing speech recognition without me asking it.
Yes, it's very sensitive and not in a useful way, but it does actually work really well. I asked it to turn the heated steering wheel on and things like that, and it was like, yes, of course, doing it now.
And given that the system is it's like 6-7 years old, it's really good. It's good quality given the age of the vehicle. So we just switched, and I guess now is a good time as any to talk about the gear selector.
Yes.
It's quite an interesting setup.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first most obvious thing is that you have to pull it backwards to go forwards, which makes sense if you think about a standard automatic gear selector where you pull it back and that's how you go forwards. But because it's not a standard automatic gear selector, it feels incredibly counterintuitive to me, and I've spent the whole time with this vehicle putting it in reverse when I wanted to go forwards and in drive when I wanted to go backwards.
See, I didn't necessarily find that as a problem, but one thing that did irk me, I see your gear selector problem, because I like how it feels. Mm-hmm. And then I like that I can put my thumb in just the right place and move it forwards and backwards. I have a suspicion if you have a smaller hand than I do, and I have big hands, same size hands as my mum. We all have big hands at my family. I suspect if you have very petite hands, it might not feel quite so comfortable because you're going to have to grab it closer to the button, and therefore it won't fit under your palm quite as nicely. The thing that I have issues with, though, is this blasted cruise control stalk.
It's a little bit busy. I mean, this whole vehicle, this area is busy.
Right. And there's buttons on the steering wheel. Nicely, they are actually physical buttons that you press not capacitive ones. I can have my finger resting on this button and it doesn't go to a different setting, which I am so pleased about because
you've just recently driven an ID series vehicle and
with
it
capacitive
still
touch buttons.
has that problem that you brush things and it goes, I'm going to do this.
But, you know, back to this cruise control button, right? So you've got your distance setting down there, you've got your set button, you've got your speed up and down, you've got your on, off, cancel, resume. It feels a little bit like a plane cockpit.
Yes.
With a button for everything, and you have to know where all the buttons are, and you have to be comfortable just knowing where all those buttons are. I mean, it's really nice that it's got all of these different options available to you, so you know, like, this is where I need to go. It's even got information here for your parking lights, which is a feature on European cars that I love.
Yes.
It allows you to park your car on the street at night time, and it illuminates your lights at a kind of a dim brightness on the side of the vehicle that is closest to the flow of traffic, which is, I think all cars should have that. I do like the customizability of this screen here. You know, it allows you to pick how large the gauges are. It's very nice, lots of information, lots of user customizability there. And of course, you also have a really good head-up display.
Yes, it's really bright and clear.
One of the best that I've seen,
yes,
actually.
I haven't tried it with sunglasses on, which is always tricky with the polarizing, but certainly once I realised it was there, because when I got in the car I was positioned such that I couldn't see it, and then managed to find the option in the menu to adjust it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge.
Because it was just that I happened to sit up a little bit and I went, oh, hang on, there is a head-up display. I thought there was meant to be one of those, and wasn't found. Yeah, really bright, really clear, nice, concise information displayed well.
And, you know, there are some nice little features, like, so you can have a weather front lighting, the all-weather lights that they call it. You just press that button and it stays on. So you can have auto lights, but then you can press that button if you feel that the weather means you should have your lights on, which I feel like a lot of people don't understand the rules around when you should have your lights on and when you shouldn't, but it makes it easier to do that. The other thing I want to commend Audi on is the visibility. The frontward visibility in this car is excellent.
Yeah, the visibility in this vehicle is very good. And I was having a whine about the rear view camera, but then realised that it has a spray jet. So when you arrive at your destination and you go to reverse, the rear view camera covered in dirt, it has a nice spray jet, it comes up nice and clear. It has a rear wiper. Thank you, Audi. It has a rear wiper.
With an intermittent functionality as well.
Yeah, it's the visibility and the means to maintain that visibility are really good.
And when you're on the road, when you're on the freeway, we're doing 55, the limit's 55, it's so refined and quiet and smooth. And it's got integrated rear shades in the back, so if you've got a kiddo, you can pull those shades up, and obviously you can put the full-length glass roof and cover that with the sunshade, and then it's nice and dark and cozy in the rear. It just has that wonderful kind of refined, comfortable cabin that doesn't make you feel claustrophobic.
It doesn't. Given the age of the vehicle, and yes, this is a brand new car, but it's not a brand new car in terms of design. It is remarkably spacious. It feels very comfortable, and it really has a lot of thought put into the way that the cabin fits together.
And how you're going to use it. So you've got a touch screen back there for climate control. There are vents in the A pillar, there are vents in the B pillar, there are vents directed towards the passenger footwells, towards where the passengers are sitting. You have the ability to change your climate control back there.
You have outboard heated seats. And one of my favourite features, which I just delighted when I found, is that you can set the temperature of the footwells.
Yes.
Separate. Well, not separately, but you can say, relative to the cabin, how warm do I want my footwells? And since I always have cold feet, that is a delightful feature that I wish every car had.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I just want to celebrate here with Audi is a phenomenal feature that I don't see in that many vehicles, but it is in this. And that's the ability to selectively pick which side of the car the rear door locks operate on. So if you have child locks, you can pick which side of the vehicle the child locks operate. You can have them on both sides or just one side, and that is wonderful, especially if you have like a teenager and then like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, being able to do that is so handy, because quite often we find that we get review vehicles where the child locks are on, and then you get in the back and it's
You can't get out.
it's rather awkward.
Final thing I want to kind of throw in about the seats is something that you really love, and that's the massage function.
Oh yes, let's just revitalize myself. Excellent. I am someone who quite likes a decent-ish massage seat. I mean, massages from a seat are never exactly the same as a massage from an actual masseuse, but I do find that I get kind of stiff and achy in the way that, you know, bodies do as you get older, and it's nice. This function is decently firm and provides, unlike, shall we say, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Platinum, which kind of felt like I was being abused. This just actually feels quite pleasant, and I just kind of want to wriggle into it and be like, yeah, that's good. In fact, I'm going to leave it on.
See, I abhor seat massaging. I always have. I suspect I always will. I do not want anyone pummeling my back, whether it is a human or a robot. And I like my seats to be like comfortable, and I just can sink into them. I don't like having a whole lot of lumbar support. That's the first thing I turn off. Like, retract the lumbar support when I get into a car. I like plush and comfortable, not posture enhancing or de-stressing. I do carry a lot of tension in my back and my legs, so maybe that's why I don't like it. But the heated function is lovely. You can have heated seats and heated blowed seats at the same time.
Which is an interesting choice.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, you can get some airflow while also having it warm.
Yeah.
I quite like that as a function. And I should point out that these touchscreen displays, while you do have to look down for them, which is not great from a safety point of view, you do get a haptic feedback.
Yes. Yeah, which is nice. The other thing I would say about those heated seats is that it doesn't turn them down, and that I love, because I like a warm butt, as I've said before, and most vehicles, including my Nero, you drive along and it goes, no, you've had enough warming. You're warm
done
enough.
now. Yeah.
I'm going to turn this down, and you have to cycle back through and be like, no, I still want to be warm. This doesn't do that. This keeps that seat toasty warm and so nice.
So we haven't really talked about the specs, because we focused on this primarily as a car for kind of luxuriating in, rather than necessarily having performance chops, but it does have performance chops.
Yeah. I mean, it's got 400 horsepower.
It's got 300 kilowatts, all-wheel drive. In this particular variant, there is a variant, the 50 version, which is slightly less powerful. It's like 250 kilowatts instead of 300. But
Yeah,
they're
that's
all
still plenty enough.
They're all pretty good. 0 to 60 is about 5-ish seconds in this,
Yeah.
and 6-7 in the other one.
You've got a 114 kilowatt hour usable battery pack, which you can charge at up to 170 kilowatts if you precondition, or you can charge it at 30 kilowatts
if you don't.
up to about 80 if you don't, which is not ideal.
And, you know, there's a frunk.
There is.
Small frunk for charge cable.
There's a little space in the back under the boot floor for camera gear.
Yeah, that's currently what we're holding our camera in. And, you know, it's a reasonably large boot. I haven't checked the specs on it, but it's appropriate for the size of vehicle.
Yeah, there's plenty of space back there for anything you want to haul.
And this really is going to be ideally suited to somebody who has a young family, or to someone who is maybe a little older and they're looking for a car that they can buy and use through to their retirement. That isn't a Tesla, that isn't like a Model Y. Maybe they don't want something that's more luxurious. But the biggest criticism I have of this vehicle is the price. It is just about $80,000, and it is going out of production. So it really is best if you buy it used.
Best if you buy it used, or when it has actually gone out of production and dealers are like, please, please get this off my lot, buy it then.
So that's it, really. This is not a car you should be buying if you're looking for a brand new car, because it's going out of production and it's showing its age. But if you consider it as a used EV in the same way that you might consider a used Bolt or something like that, as long as you are willing to pay for it and you can get it for a good price, I think it would be a really good car, especially if you've got a young family and you want to have a car with a little bit of space that's not super huge, especially if you want a car that can raise itself up and handle off-road occasionally. And there are some cool features inside. Shout out to the fact that the sound system is excellent once you've turned off the stupid 3D audio. You don't like the cup holders.
Oh my God, they're so bad. So
We'll just
bad.
leave it at that. And they don't really hold anything very large. They're not very wide.
Or small.
They just don't work very well.
Or cans.
But the phone inductive charging system is nice and large, can accommodate a modern phone, despite this being an old car now. And there's a little clip that holds your phone nicely in place to ensure it actually charges and doesn't slide around. So good job, Audi. We have come back to the same place that we filmed the conclusion for the Hummer EV SUV. And when I knew we were going to get this car, I didn't think that was going to happen. But for reasons that will become apparent, this is the perfect place to do the conclusion. Also, Michael is not working today. They're not feeling very well. So we decided that we were going to film somewhere where we could film without being disturbed. And it's also chucking down with rain and getting heavier.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the wonderful automotive journalist. Let's go somewhere beautiful in the rain at 40 degrees.
Oh, America's making its presence felt. You're now using Fahrenheit.
Only this once.
Only this once. So, look, when I was little, we didn't have a car. We sold our car when I was like 4, I think. And we used to have to take the bus or the train or walk or cycle. And the only time we ever went anywhere in a car was when we were going to go and see family. And my dad would go down to the local car rental place and he'd rent a car. Normally, you know, a Ford or a Vauxhall or nothing fancy. But driving in that car, sitting in the back seat, as my dad played, you know, classic FM on the radio, I got a kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling, right? That's the feeling I get from this car. It's warm, not rainy. It's dry. It's everything that we are not right now, right? Comfortable.
It's quiet.
It's quiet. It's kind of that European epitome of understatement.
It absolutely reminds me of Audis of old. Like, my family did not have Audis. We had Vauxhalls and Fords.
Yep.
But some of the families I knew did, and riding in the back of those, you just felt it's not opulent. It's not really, really luxurious. It's just incredibly comfortable, incredibly quiet, and feels well put together in the way that our Cavalier certainly did not.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of that. This is that same experience all over again. It's smooth, it's understated, and it just gets the job done incredibly well.
I really like the fact that this is often marketed as a brand, and we're talking, you know, specifically about the brand now. Audi, Mercedes-Benz and BMW are often mentioned in the same sentence, right? As being a similar bar. But the reality is that Mercedes-Benz EVs tend to be much, much more heavily emphasizing the take Jeeves with you kind of thing. You know, you sit in the passenger seat. BMWs are for people who want to drive and also have that experience. This is just for people who want a car that feels good and just does the job and is very refined and is very comfortable. And we made the decision when we were discussing what we were going to say about this car to come back up here. And when we came up here in the Hummer, we came up here in the Hummer because it's a gravel trail. It's more of an off-roady feel. There are potholes. There are, you would think a vehicle that is designed and built like the Hummer EV would be the off-road king, chunky tyres, air suspension. You can raise up the suspension to a stupidly high amount, crab steer and all of that. But when we came up here in the Hummer, it bounced and rattled and jostled at every turn. It didn't feel sure-footed. It wanted to slide all over the place despite having that all-wheel steering. This doesn't have all-wheel steering, but it does have all-wheel drive, 300 kilowatts. It has air suspension, much smaller tyres, no chunky off-road tyres. What was it like driving it up here, Kate?
It was like riding on a cloud. I mean, look, the Hummer as a driving experience, not in terms of grip, but in terms of your passenger comfort, really reminded me of my friend's shagged out Land Rover 90 that had over 100,000 miles on it and was a work vehicle and was a heap. It was bouncy and loud and uncomfortable. This was just like gliding up here. You hit potholes and I didn't even notice.
Yeah, no, there was some some ribbing on the road to try and get you to have better grip or get you to slow down for the corners. This was just like rumble strips almost. It felt more like a rumble strip than a which is what you get in the Hummer.
Yeah.
Which leads me to think that this car is one that is actually well suited to life outside of the city, but for one thing.
What thing is that, Nikki?
So this is a 7-year-old car to all intents and purposes, right? 6-7 years old. As we said at the beginning, this car is going out of production like in 2 months.
Yep.
And so this is not really a new car review, and we shouldn't treat it like that. If this was a new car, it's terrible. If we treat it like a used EV, it's much better. But to your question, why is it not suited to life outside of town, is the range.
Yeah.
Now, I want to throw a bit of a bone to Audi here. Audi is one of the few automakers that offers you the ability to purchase energy efficiency as a package. You get smaller wheels that are designed for better efficiency, you get energy-saving tyres on, and Harvey, who we met at Everything Electric, who has driven his Audi e-tron, and it's an earlier model year, all around North America, has managed to do some really impressive long-distance driving through really remote areas with nary a problem, and that's because of the efficiency package. So if you drive it efficiently, if you drive it courteously,
with the efficiency package,
and you have the efficiency package, you're going to be able to eke out an impressive mileage out of this. But in its current form, the best I saw was maybe 250, 260, and you said you saw 200.
Yeah, basically from the day I got it, the best I saw was 218, and then today, which, to be fair, it is a cold, miserable day, it said 206 when I got in it this morning.
And you did have to stop and fast charge it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a vehicle that we had to rapid charge to do the review.
And the other thing, while we're talking about that, is while it does have battery preconditioning, like a lot of EVs.
Yeah, it lacks the magic button to say, I just want you to precondition, which is more of a problem if you're going somewhere where you know where the chargers are, because I didn't think about setting the charger as the destination until I was very close, and then I was like, there's really no point.
Right.
I'm like 5 minutes away. We'll just let it warm up on the charger, and I got 30 kilowatts when I plugged it in.
Now, people who have used the preconditioning say that it does dramatically improve the charging speed. But as far as I can tell, there's no button in the car to just say, please precondition the battery. As we've seen on other EVs we've driven this year, more and more automakers are starting to realise that you don't necessarily always use route planning to get to your charging station. And so being able to hit the button and go, hey, I want to get to this next charging station or this location, I want you to precondition because I'm going to be arriving at a charger, is super important. So the ride is good. Some of the best quality riding that I've had in any EV, actually, I would say.
Yeah.
Better even than some of the Mercedes models we've driven. better than the BMWs, better than the Hummer EV, better than the F-150 Lightning, better than the Kia EV9, all of those.
Hands down.
But it is showing its age. This is a car that is based on, like I say, 7-8-year-old technology. It's been in production now for coming up on 7 years, which means the technology behind it is 8-9 years old, and it shows. It is such a shame to only get time behind the wheel with this now. Now, to all intents and purposes, and I didn't mention this earlier in the review, there are companies in the US whose job it is to represent the automakers and to manage the press fleets. And here in the Pacific Northwest, there are 2 different companies. One of them has been excellent with us. You know, new car comes out, we ask for it and we get it straight away. The folks responsible for the Audi contract are a little bit slower to respond. They're not always as on the ball. And back in January, we were offered the chance to drive this car. And then it was booked for the last week of February, which was the week where we had massive winter storms coming through, one after another. And I actually reached out to that press fleet, not Audi, the press fleet are separate, and went, hey, there's a really bad storm coming through. I don't think it's a good idea for us to have this car. Do you have any other dates? And they're like, well, it's going back to Audi. This is it. So we got it. And then, of course, I crashed my truck and I was unable to review it. So if you've watched all of the B-roll for this and gone, it looks like it was filmed at a different time of year, it was. It was filmed in late February. Mm-hmm. It's now early November when we're reviewing this, and it's taken us nearly a year to get this car, and now it's being discontinued. So that's the reason why it's taken us so long to get this car. I have thoughts on that matter that I'm not going to share here, but, you know, Audi is just about to come out with the Q6, right? It's going to be built on the same platform that the Macan is based on. The Q6 e-tron and the Macan are basically the same car underneath. This is not on a shared platform with any Porsche models. And if you put the 2 side by side, this is not a good new car buy. But let's talk about it as a used car.
As a used car, if it meets your needs in terms of range, I think it has the capability to be a really good option.
It's incredibly competent for what it does. It doesn't cross-shop against any currently in production EVs. I would suggest that this might be a good alternative for someone who doesn't want to buy a Tesla Model Y.
Yeah.
It might be a good alternative for someone who doesn't want maybe a GM, one of the new GM EVs, or they don't want a Mustang Mach-E, or they don't want the Volkswagen ID.4 because the ID.4 is too pedestrian for them and not quite as luxurious. The fit, finish and trim on this is excellent. Very minimal rattles and quibbles. I will note that same press fleet has delivered this car with a bunch of warnings on the dash about service intervals being due, and it's only been driven, 5,000 miles since new, so let's take from that what we want, but it has been reliable while we've had it. And I think if you are...
We can't say that of every car that we've had.
Exactly, and I think if you find one of these on the used car market for 40 grand,
yeah,
maybe 35 grand, I'd seriously consider this at 35, 40 grand for a used car, especially if you're in the US and you have the used car federal tax incentives. But as you say, range is the concern. Where is it going to be most at home? Up the mountains in Switzerland, up in the Alps, or perhaps, in the Black Forest in Germany. It is that kind of car, but just don't expect to take it on the Autobahn and do more than about 150 miles before you need to stop and charge. I can't wait to test out the next Audi EV.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if Audi take what they and the rest of the group have learnt from building EVs over the last few years, then I think it has the possibility of producing a car that is really, really phenomenal.
The problem? They've just closed the plant for this, or they're about to, and Volkswagen Group are cutting back. And the question is, Is that going to affect the EVs that we see rolling off the production line in the next few months and years? Or is that going to have a bigger impact further down the line? I guess only time will tell. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got some thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, our Patreon page, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers that you can sign up for from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just over $10 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Alan Brim, Jim, Sarah Horlock, full name, Todd Johnson, Roderick, Stuart Despain, Rupert Ronson, Larry Phoenix, Darla, Wendy Kelly Bundenbaum, and Kay. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll also find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have a good old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also linked below. And of course, if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store in the down below. We've also got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.
Did you not press record on the sound? I mean, we have the backup ones.
That's fine. Let's go from the top.
You're just trying to freeze me to death. I'm gonna be drenched.
That's fine.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it? Thank you for that.
All right, so this is Audi. Conclusion for the Audi Q8 e-tron. Take one. 3, 2, 1, snap.
Tart.